Hello and welcome to Cultural Capital. I'm your host, Marilyn Bauer, coming to you today from the Morikami Museum in Japanese Gardens. Today we're going to go inside the galleries to see the only exhibition of Koge work in the United States. We'll take a little look at some Japanese street fashion and also a little bit about the gardens surrounding us. So come on inside and take a look. Hello, here we are in the galleries of the Morikami Museum and Japanese Gardens. We're meeting today with Velko Duen, the Chief Curator of Collections, and we're in their exhibition of Koge, which we'll let him explain exactly what that means. Hello, Velko.
Hello. Koge, well, the best way to translate Koge is arts and crafts, and what we have is wonderful examples that were made in Japan from right around 1980 till the present day, and includes kimono and other textile pieces, ceramics, bamboo objects, pieces made out of metal, wood, and we have a couple of inkstones as well as 2 dolls.
And so Koge, how does that translate?
Well, the best way to translate would be arts and crafts. The line between the arts and crafts in Japan is a very, very blurry one. Most of what we would traditionally consider craftsmen in the West would really be artists in Japan.
And how would you describe the designation as national treasure?
Well, the living national treasure is sort of a catchy name for the holder of intangible cultural properties, which was designated by the Japanese government in 1950s in order to preserve certain traditional arts in Japan, like the pottery, textile making, and even some performing arts like the dances.
And so this came about right after the war?
This came right after the Second World War, where the whole country was basically leveled and devastated, and there was no market for art, especially for the new art. People were actually trying to survive, and a lot of art collections were sold for, pennies essentially.
And so who was it that stepped in to preserve these art forms?
The Japanese government, they've seen that some traditional Japanese pottery centers, for example, were on the brink of being abandoned, and they needed help. The artists actually needed help in promoting their products and finding clientele. So they stepped in and they designated a number of artists the living national treasures, or the holders of intangible cultural properties. And what they did is a miracle, really, for the arts in Japan, because the collectors were there, both Japanese and foreign, that were interested in these particular artists. And really the best thing that happened is not only those particular artists benefited from this, but the whole town did. We had people that would go and buy not only the people that were with the designation of living national treasure, but everybody else's work as well.
So it's a kind of cultural tourism.
It essentially is a cultural tourism, yes.
So basically what happened is the government subsidized the artists in order to stimulate the economy.
Not necessarily subsidizing, they just gave them designation. And really what it did is of course, the value of their work went up, and the number of collectors that were looking to buy such pieces was, of course, increasing. So they created interest.
Very interesting. I thought that this collection of kimono behind you was very, very interesting in that it's an ancient art form, and there's even one that was created with computer programming?
Yes. One of the kimono in the case is actually designed on a computer, and it's computer printed. Traditionally, of course, they would be dyed or woven in such patterns, but this one is the one that's done with the computer technology, so it's pretty interesting.
And what about this one directly behind you that has such an interesting dye job of color blocking and these beautiful deep colors?
That's the one that's considered Mason kimono, and really what happened is the fabric would be pre-dyed and then it would woven. So when you look at the lines, it would be slightly blurry because they could never get it really perfect.
Amazing. What would you consider to be the most significant ceramic piece in this collection?
Well, there are several that are really, really interesting. I guess my top three ones would be the T-balls in the case right in front of us would be by Suzuki Osamu. There are also two T-balls by Raku Kichizaemon, the 15th, and one of my favorite potters, Fukami Soiharu. There's a wonderful object by him.
And what makes them significant? What is it that's important about them?
Well, Suzuki Osamu is a living national treasure. Raku Kichizaemon is the 15th in his family, actually, that's been doing pottery, primarily T-balls. As a matter of fact, his far ancestor in the late 1500s was brought from Korea. And they started actually making T-balls in Japan. And although he's the 15th in the generation pottery maker, he is not making the same thing that his father and grandfather and great-grandfather did. He actually studied sculpture. And his T-balls, when you look at them, they're very sculptural. They're not, they're functional, of course, but they're not just traditional what a rakuware looks like.
One of the things I'm sure that viewers are wondering is, this is the first time that the Koge collection here has been shown in the United States, correct?
This is the first exhibit of strictly Koge in the United States. We had pieces from some of these artists displayed in this and other museums in United States, but as a Koge exhibit, this is really the first one.
So how did you get this exhibition here? How were you able to bring it to Florida?
Well, this was a joint effort from the several entities, the Consul General of Japan in Miami, the Bunkacho, the Agency of Cultural Affairs in Japan, and the National Museum of Modern Art in Tokyo were the organizing factors with us.
And is it the mission of the Morikami to bring more of this type of show to the museum?
Yes, our mission is to promote the culture cultural cooperation between Japan and the United States, and such exhibits would be perfect examples.
And what about the Japanese street fashion exhibition?
Well, this Japanese street fashion is actually a fun exhibit. It's been curated by Wendy Lowe from our education department. And it's really showcasing the both photographs and garments that would be worn in Japan by the young ladies.
Ah, interesting. And is there any kind of interplay between the Koge and the Japanese street fashion?
No,
not at all.
Nothing at all, really.
When this exhibition closes in February, what happens then?
We're going to have two practically brand new exhibits, because about 20 out of 50 pieces will be changed. All of the textile pieces, lacquerware, bamboo work, and woodwork will be exchanged.
And what would you like people to take away from this exhibition?
Well, I would like the people to look at what's happening in Japan right now and to take that something even very traditional can be made very contemporary, and the pieces actually can be very both functional and sculpture at the same time.
This is an exquisite exhibition, and I hope everyone comes out to see these living treasures. Thank you so much for meeting with us today.
Well, thank you for coming. It was my pleasure.
We'll be back with more at the Morikami Museum and Japanese Gardens. Welcome back to the Morikami Museum. We're here today with Bonnie White-LeMay, Administrator of Morikami Park, in the Seiseinan Tea House. Welcome.
Thank you so much, and we're so pleased to have you visiting with us today.
Can you tell us a little bit about the tea house?
Well, we're very fortunate that we actually have an authentic reproduction of two tea houses here, and we were very pleased to be able to have it produced in Japan with 8 different types of authentic Japanese woods, which then was disassembled, floated up through the Panama Canal, and then reassembled here for us at the Morikami.
Amazing, amazing. So I understand the Morikami Museum and Gardens all started with a group of Japanese farmers.
That's correct. In the early 1900s, a small colony came to Delray Beach in order to farm the land. And we became the very fortunate recipients here in Palm Beach County of the wonderful institution that we have here today because of a beautiful gift from George Morikami, of which today it actually happens to be his birthday. And
happy birthday,
George! We are very fortunate that we received 200 acres from his hard work and prosperity here in the Delray Beach area. through his gift to Palm Beach County. In the early 1900s, George went to the parents of his girlfriend and asked for his approval to have her hand in marriage. And unfortunately, her parents turned him down. And he thought, well, maybe if he came here to this farming colony, farmed the land here, went back, purchased some land and became a farmer and well established in Japan, he could re-ask for his girlfriend's hand in marriage. And he came here, he farmed the land, he did very well, he was very successful, he put his money in the banks, and unfortunately the banks folded. And he thought, oh, what a dilemma. I could go back to Japan and I could feel unsuccessful once again, or I could try once again here in Palm Beach County, which he did. And he farmed the land and he amassed 200 acres. And when he was coming within 10 years of the end of his life, he went both to Delray Beach and Palm Beach County back and forth for almost 10 years. And he said, you've made me feel part of your country and your environment. This is my second home and I would love to give you my land and gift it to you. And at that time, all this land was undeveloped and we were very far west, and both Delray Beach and Palm Beach County said thank you, but no thank you, until a very wise man in Palm Beach County on the Palm Beach County Board of Commissioners said, we would greatly appreciate this lovely gift. Yes, we will take it and thank you very much. And with that started our legacy 36 years ago of the growth that we've been able to accomplish here at the Morikami. And we started with the original Yamada-kan main museum. At that time, it was our main museum, and we've been able to grow and enhance to this existing main museum, which you're having an opportunity to visit today, and expand to the renovated gardens, which Heather will tell you more about in a little while. And so we feel very fortunate that this beautiful gift has been a gift that continues to give, and will do so for the future.
I have a few more questions about the start of the Morikami. So these farmers that came from Japan, it was an experiment, it was an agricultural experiment, is that correct?
That's correct, and they thought that they would see which fruits and vegetables did best here. And so they were finding success with pineapples and green peppers, and they were continuing to explore the opportunities here as far as farming was concerned. But it was untested to a degree because we have a lot of limestone in our soil, and so it's not that rich soil as you might find out in Belle Glade, but they had to experiment and test to see what would be successful here and what would not work.
And how did this group identify this area specifically?
I think it was really happenstance and where the railroads were situated, because they felt that they could get the produce in and out, and we did have a train station in Delray Beach.
Oh. And then whose idea was it to take this beautiful piece of land and create these amazing gardens?
Palm Beach County has been a godsend. They have really worked with our nonprofit, the Morikami Incorporated, to hear what the community is interested in having on the 200 acres. And we have wonderful ideas and visions for the future, but we've taken baby steps to where we've gotten today to start with our Yamada-kan, which really enacted a lot of the history of the Yamato colony. Now it also houses Japan Through the Eyes of a Child, which is a wonderful hands-on exhibit that people can take advantage of when they come to visit, whether it's our members or guests. And we've been able to grow the gardens proper to be able to explore 6 different periods of very distinct Japanese gardens so that we can enhance the experience. When our members and our visitors come, it's more of a step into Japan and out of Florida so that people have a sense of what they would experience visiting Japan.
And you have a world-renowned collection of bonsai?
We have been very fortunate to grow our bonsai garden as well, and we are the 3rd cooperative World Bonsai Federation Cooperative Center in the United States. The first one being at Washington's Arboretum, the second one being at North Carolina in Asheville, And then we have now been designated as the third Friendship Cooperative site. So we're very fortunate to be able to grow our bonsai garden. One of those opportunities for growth that I touched on earlier is that we hope to be able to have a completely exclusive standalone bonsai exhibit. So we'll be able to move it from its location where it is presently in the next few years to a separate standalone exhibit.
Well, thank you so much for being with us today. We're going to take a walk now into the gardens and see more of Morikami Museum and Japanese gardens. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, we're back and we're outside the Morikami Museum at the Japanese Garden. We're here with Heather Grisback, Resource Development Supervisor for the museum, and she's going to give us a little information about the development of the gardens here. Hi Heather, welcome to Cultural Capital.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good.
Welcome to my office.
What an office. I understand that the Yamada-kan was the first building on this property.
Yes, it was actually. In 1977, it was actually the original museum that housed our curator and our assistant curator. And then in the early 90s, our main museum that everybody is the most familiar with was erected and opened, that houses our multiple galleries. And then, of course, our Cornell Cafe. And then the decision was made to then develop further the property into the 16 acres of Japanese gardens.
So you said something about when you first got here, this space between the Yamada-kan and the main building was a sea of grass?
Actually, when I visited before the new gardens were developed, yes, it was actually just the main museum and then the Yamato-kan, which just had a small path, probably about a third of the lake that is actually currently here, and mostly just fields of grass, yes.
So how do you get from fields of grass to this incredible landscape?
We hired Hoichi Kurisu of Kurisu International, who walked the property and began some thinking. The gardens were opened but started construction right around the millennium. So it was very exciting for him because he was really looking at the culture of Japan and how it was so tied to a lot of very kind of traditions and all of that, but looking at the new millennium, it was time to start opening up their ways of thinking and starting looking at different interpretations of Japanese gardens and how they are in Japan as opposed to how they are here, not only in Florida, but obviously in the United States.
What constitutes a Japanese garden?
A Japanese garden is actually very, very different from that of a botanical garden or some of the other collections gardens that you may see. Japanese gardening has a lot to do with more of a restorational kind of feeling to it. So you should come here and you should walk through the door and you might have kind of the weight of the world on your shoulders. You might be stressed out because of your job or maybe your personal situations. But when you leave here, you should actually feel rested, you should feel relaxed, and you should feel renewed.
That's fantastic. Now, can you explain to us that as you stroll along these paths, you come upon little beautiful pieces of Eden. Can you tell us about the different gardens?
Sure, there are 6 different historical periods that you go through as you travel from the main museum and then around through the West Gardens, then approaching the Yamato-kan, which houses our bonsai exhibit, which we do house the largest outdoor bonsai exhibit in the nation, which is very, very exciting for us.
Very.
And then travel your way back to the main museum. So you first come off of the main museum, and the scope of the gardens were designed to go with the architecture and the actual vastness and the size of the museum. So you come off of the terrace, and then you go over our main Woodruff Bridge onto our 2 first Shinden Islands, and those are the first historical period. Now, those gardens are the most colorful that you'll see here on the property because these gardens were actually not meant to be strolled through, but to be actually seen or viewed by boat. So an aristocrat might have a boat, and they might be having some visitors or some guests, and they might be enjoying some haiku and drinking some tea and kind of viewing the gardens. And then we move into our bamboo grove, where you can hear and you can smell all different sounds of the click-clacking, and the litter, the leaf litter meaning, has a specific smell to it, which is very naturalistic and very earthy. So Japanese gardens not only appeal to what you're seeing visually, but can also bounce off of your other senses as well. Moving through the bamboo grove, then we go to our pathway to paradise, which is a guava tunnel, which kind of makes everything a little bit dark and mysterious. Traveling through that, you then go into our paradise garden. The paradise garden is a little bit more naturalistic. It does have a small pagoda in the middle. It's 2 actual lakes that are connected. And that was an area that was designed because at that time, there was a lot of wars going on and things like that, and people were very nervous. They didn't really know what was going to kind of be the outcome. So they started to build these small paradise gardens because they believed that if the end of the world came or something like that, their spirits would inhabit things, natural things like rocks and trees. So they built these small paradise gardens on their properties. So if something catastrophic happened, their spirits would have somewhere to inhabit. Then we move on our shishi-doshi, which is one of the favorites here of everybody. They love to see the clack-clack of a bamboo arm that fills with water, and it smacks down on a rock and then back on its end. The intention is to be a deterrent for wildlife. It's called a deer chaser, is the literal translation of shishi-doshi. Doesn't actually work, but you know, we like it, and most people do.
And I can hear the waterfall in the background. We've seen turtles since we've been here. Is there other wildlife on the property?
There are, you know, just the normal things that everybody has in their landscape here. You know, raccoons and squirrels and rabbits and a lot of birds. It's fabulous in the morning. A lot of times when we start getting visitors, they kind of head for higher grounds, but it's wonderful. We have blue heron, we have some ibis, some cattle egret, we have osprey, pretty much anything that you'd see.
So when a visitor comes and they leave the main building and they go around and walk, how long does that experience usually take?
It's about 7/8 of a mile. You know, some people can rush through it pretty quickly, but if you rush through, you're kind of missing a lot of the beauty. I did also want to mention the last couple gardens, we do have 2 Zen gardens. Which are the big giant rock gardens that Sensui gardens that everybody's familiar with, and it's a big draw here. We do have 2 of those. We have the late rock garden and we have a flat garden.
Well, Heather, thank you so much for sharing your office with us this afternoon.
You're very welcome.
It's been a beautiful experience. Thank you for spending your afternoon with us at the Morikami Museum and Japanese Gardens. Come on down and enjoy this beautiful, tranquil experience. You'll learn a lot, you'll feel good, and you'll discover something new about our county. You can also visit the Morikami at morikami.org. Thanks again, and see you at the next Cultural Capital.